Hey, everybody, this is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. I got the opportunity to talk to the CEO of H2H Companies, PureMatter, as well as being known as the Zen Master to digital marketers. Bryan Kramer joined me on the podcast. And Bryan talked a lot about what H2H is and what his company does. But Bryan talked about this as a core. Leaders, if you are not human, if you are not your authentic self, then your marketing, your leadership, none of it is going to work. You want to really listen in as he gives some great advice. Let's get at it.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. I have a phenomenal leader here with me this afternoon, and I can't wait to hear about his backstory, but also hear his advice that he's going to have for you leaders when it comes to what's going to be your best competitive advantage. And it's stuff that he does day in and day out. So I want to introduce the CEO of H2H Companies and PureMatter. Bryan Kramer has joined me today. Bryan, it is so great to have you on. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the kind introduction. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So I have to read what I saw was kind of your nickname a little bit. Zen Master to digital marketers. I love that. Zen Master reminds me of Phil Jackson, the old coach of the Bulls. And, but I love that. And I can't wait to hear your backstory. I think it's amazing. And so tell us your backstory. You can go back as far as you want to go, but what prompted you also to start these couple of companies? Give us that story.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. I'd be happy to share. My backstory is really that I, graduated with communications and marketing degree. And my job really was to work on transformation throughout every marketing agency that I worked on and with. And so, through the internet era being started to digital marketing through social marketing, now into AI. And so it just continues, which is really exciting. And a lot of my background was while it was in the transformation, I always knew I wanted to start my own company. And so we did. I started it with my wife in 2001. Our first one, which was PureMatter, and that was a marketing agency. And we got married, then started a company, and then had a child all within two and a half years. So that could have been a lottery ticket, or it could have been, it was a lottery ticket either way. But it worked out. We had the agency for almost 22 years, and it's just been incredible. And then we started a couple others as well. So really good stuff. We started small, with just the two of us, and then eventually grew it to 30 employees at $30 million, and worked with some really great brands along the way: Netflix, Cisco, MasterCard, some really cool stuff. And, reinvented a whole lot of times and just learned a lot along the way too. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. I was going to say those first 2.5 years, that must've been fun. What are a few lessons along the way, Bryan, that you learned?
Ooh, don't start a company on a credit card. So, I made the mistake of doing that, and I paid for it for years. I think that there's something to be said about getting clients, getting your ducks in a row, getting a real small business loan, doing things that way. Another thing is, growing organically, as you put one foot in front of the other, creating the opportunities to hire because you need them, not because you want to put a bet on the fact that you think you need them. and be really ritualistic around process and structure. I learned, thank God, in the first 5 years of it, that structure and process would carry it through so that I could then go on vacation and enjoy my life, not just be run by the business.
Oh, no doubt. I love that. I love that. Was there a moment where you just knew that you knew that, hey, this is going to be the real deal?
The day I started it with
Really?
corp, yeah, we were, I was ready. I was so ready. I'd already, done really a lot of things in my career before that. Able to start a company within a company on somebody else's dime and their own P&L, and we grew it to the largest, fastest growing digital agency, interactive agency in Silicon Valley,
Hmm.
from 3 people to 77 people, and then it sold. I wasn't an owner in the company, but I had the qualifications at that point, and so I knew if I could do it with someone else. My wife was saying, "Hey, if you did it with them, now do it for you."
Huh.
So I felt ready and prepared, which I think was a gift. And so when we started, it was just a matter of, now what do we want to be when we grow up, not how do we want to be, and what do we want to offer. We knew that going into it, but there were a lot of things that I still, I'm glad that we did, and yet I learned a lot, along the way, like everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's awesome. That is the first time I've ever heard anybody say the second I started it was was the turning point. I love that. That's fantastic. All right, let's get into what is H2H? What exactly is that?
H2H, though, the entire title, which is also the title of my book, it's there's no B2B or B2C, which is business to business or business to consumer. It's H2H, human to human. A lot of that really goes back in time. I mean, when you think to human, you can go as far back as, a door-to-door salesperson, person at the, still today, you go buy a car from a person who, whether you like it or not, greets you in the parking lot. Somebody that you meet at the grocery store every time you go to check out, unless you're in the self-service line, which I argue you still end up having to talk to somebody to check out because something invariably goes wrong at those self-checkout counters. So there's so much human to human in our lives, and then when social media came on the scene, which wasn't that long ago, it changed the paradigm shift forever. It shifted everything because now all of a sudden companies had to hear from people. Meaning, like, if they had a bad experience, they were going to tweet about it,
Yeah.
or Facebook about it, and now, or if they had a good experience too, it was less on the good than the bad, but it still happened. And that changed everything. It wasn't radio, TV, or newspaper. It was a one way communication before that. And now all of a sudden, the customer had a voice, and that's human to human. That's when a company and a customer had to talk it out publicly. And so now we find ourselves in a whole new shift, which is what does it mean for VR, virtual reality, AR, augmented reality, AI, artificial intelligence. So all these things are starting to have a play, and yet you said this when we first got on, and it's one of the things I say all the time, which is being human is everybody's competitive advantage, and even more so now than it ever has been.
Well, let's keep going down that road. This is so interesting, and because you were very innovative before your time, and talking about this for a while. I loved your quote: "Being human is the best competitive advantage." How can we stay human? Because it just seems like the bigger we've gotten with companies, that we become less human. I was just talking to my daughter who went on a cruise, and she said it was, I won't name the cruise line, of course, but she says the worst cruise she was ever on. And I said, well, what made it that way? It was the people. They were so impersonal, and my experience on a cruise, I won't say them either, was the exact opposite. I didn't feel like I was in a business. So in the marketing space and also with the coaching that you do, uh, how do we keep that humanity? What are some real specific ways that leaders can catch themselves and say, wait a second, I need to get more human here?
Yeah, there's one thing that we all have, and I wrote this in my second book, Shareology, which is the extension to H2H. It's what we all do as humans, which is, we share. That's what we do. And the reason that we share, after 150 interviews, the one consistent factor that every human has on Earth for the reason for why they share with one or more human beings is because they want connection. Now, why they share is a different reason, but because and that comes down to the type of sharing that we all do, which I also break down in the book. But the connection factor is really important. When you look at connection and what we all want, it's the thing that actually will separate a business that looks at a person as a person or a human versus a number. And when you look at the number one, and what I believe is the number one KPI that every business should look at, which is engagement, and when you look at engagement, and your engagement goes up, everything else will go up. And even if it's on the negative side, if there's negative engagement, now you don't want it to overtake the positive engagement, but it should inform where you want to go. And so engagement on the whole, as your number one KPI, will drive more clicks, which drives more sales, or it drives more people being interested. Now you take that to the next level and you separate out those top 1% engagers, your raving fans. It's always been this way, but now we have the data to back who our raving fans are. We don't have to go looking for needles in the haystack. It's right there in front of you. So if you just look at who your top 1% raving fans are, now you can build a community. You can give things to them that you haven't otherwise given, and you can create brand supporters, raving fans that are going to be there for you through thick and thin. And that's going to build a company, that's going to build a brand, that's going to build your business, it's going to build your personal brand, it's going to build everything that you want it to. So that's the best avenue that I think it takes to really take a look at who are the humans that are supporting your business. How do you compartmentalize them, and then how do you grow it further?
Brian, that's that is so true, and you really nailed it in every sense of the word. Begs for me to ask you the question, based on your experience, why is it that some leaders miss this piece, miss this component, and they don't want to engage, not just with their customers, but even with their employees? They don't want to ratchet up the engagement even more. Why do some leaders miss that? Because I guess it takes work, right? But it doesn't seem like it's all that hard.
Okay, so here's the thing. There's two different types of leaders there are a lot of types that break down out of this, but the two main types are authoritative or decentralized. Authoritative is when a leader is saying, this is the vision, this is where we're going. Everybody needs to do this. That's the decentralized way is saying, here's the vision, here's the reason why we need to do this, putting the why into why we're going to do this, and then saying, let's come along, everybody come along for the ride, and let's go. And then trusting the team that you now put in place with the process and structure to be able to support that and create that vision. Decentralized allows you to go much farther, because you can see that everybody is going to help carry the torch, so to speak, into the future. Authoritative is very short term. Authoritative you might look at Elon Musk. He's very authoritative when it comes to, this is what we're going to do now. Right now, everybody do it or you're fired. That's authoritative. And there's different varying degrees of authoritative versus decentralized. There's a lot of in between. And so when you look at everything that exists, you want to take a look at, when is it time to be directional? When is it time to be decentralized? And if you can come up with that, now you've got a winning combination.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. I love it. And it's a great example, unfortunately, with Elon Musk. You use a word that I love a lot, authenticity. And how does this play in and I guess one of the questions I'll throw in here as you talk a little bit about it is, can authenticity be taught?
Yes, and it can be taught, but it can be built as a muscle, as a skill. And I think that it's a word that it's a very unfortunate, because authenticity or authentic is a word that's also been overused, and people force authenticity and it looks fake. And so you have to go for extreme authenticity. And when you're in extreme authenticity, that means that you're being transparent. That means that you're being vulnerable, and that means that you're not trying to do something to get something. So when you really go to the extreme of being authentic, extreme authenticity, it really looks much different than just somebody who's trying to be authentic on Instagram, by forcing a story that's getting you really to buy their product. That's not authenticity. Authenticity is when you actually want to get to know someone for who they are.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that it can be both. I think some people come to the table with a good level of authenticity, right? But then you're saying that it can be a taught skill. Do you see that? Is that something you see a lot with the companies you work at, that they actually do teach that as a skill?
Yeah, I think that they teach it. I think that there's a lot of it comes through not as much. I will say that it's not as much. It's not because there's so many different corporate mandates that I think it does fall through the cracks, in terms of why would you want authenticity at a company? Because it's not a hard analytical KPI that you can measure. So why would we want authenticity when we can have clicks, we can have conversions, we can have things that we can put our fingers on, that really the CEO is going to hold us accountable for. Authenticity isn't a hard number that you can. What you could argue that it's not a hard number that you can measure, and yet I think that you can. I'd argue that you can measure it through three things that I covered in H2H in the book, the first book, which was simplicity, empathy, and imperfection. And you could look at any marketing campaign, or you could look at any leadership, or you could look at any action that a company is taking and ask yourself, was it simple? Was it easy to understand? Was it empathetic? Meaning, did it keep the customer in mind? And number three was, were you trying to be perfect, or was it imperfect? Was it embracing imperfection? Because there is no such thing as perfection. Just go look at Instagram. Everybody's trying to be perfect there, and take the opposite approach and say, how can I be imperfect, or at least embrace the imperfections about me? That's the vulnerability side. So if you were to measure all three, and you were to take any marketing campaign or any sales campaign or any your brand, you could apply anything to this and score it out of 10, and let your corporate team actually score it together and say, how did that do? How did it run? You're going to have a more human company. And that is a metric that can stand the test of time, and it'll raise your sales, it'll raise your engagement, it'll raise your longevity of your customers. How's our customer service doing? Is it simple? Is it empathetic? And is it imperfect? You can apply this to just about anything.
Yeah. You are so unique. Everything you just said is so dead on. But I have to tell you, you're giving me some firsts here, and here's another first. When you talked about imperfect, don't we love that as consumers, when someone could say, "Oh man, I think I kind of messed that up a little bit. So sorry. Let me get you another cup of coffee," whatever the case may be. We appreciate that, right? As consumers, when you can be vulnerable, and you can be imperfect. We know that everything, when we go to have dinner or something, we know not everything's gonna be perfect. Some nights it is, right? Or we think it is, but I love that. That is so dead on. I gotta really get your now take on coaching, because at your core, you are such a great coach. So I'm gonna ask you two questions in one here, to first define coaching in your definition, and then what are some misconceptions about coaching?
Hmm. Great question. So here's the thing. This is my view on it. Coaching. So I'm going to define it as coaching versus mentorship, because a lot of people get it wrong when they think about what coaching as somebody who's going to tell them what to do. And there's different views on it. So if you look at a purist coach is somebody who is going to keep you accountable that you have the answers, and they're going to draw the answers out of you. That's the purest form of coaching.
Mhm.
And they believe that you are creative, resourceful, and whole, that you have everything that it takes and you know the answer, but you have some blind spots, and those blind spots are keeping you from getting to the next level of what it is that you need or want or could do. The mentor is and let me take a step back. The coach is somebody who may not have done what you're trying to do, but they're skilled and trained to be able to help you get to where you still need to go because they can ask the right powerful questions. And I
Mhm.
do believe that that works. I also believe that mentorship works. So mentorship might show up as an advisor or a board executive or a board member. That's somebody who's been to the mountaintop. They've been to where you want to go, and they're throwing a rope down and they're pulling you up.
Mhm.
That's a mentor.
Mhm.
Now, the mentor may not have the skill set of a coach. They may not ask the powerful questions. They may just tell you what to do instead of actually pull that out of you. The thing I like about coaching is that coaching helps you to see it so that it sticks, so that you can actually keep it going and make it consistent. Because if somebody just tells you the answer, it's never going to work. You've
Mhm.
got to come up with it on your own in order for it to not only stick, for you to carry it through. And
Mhm.
so I believe that there's a combination of those two that actually works. I'm not a purist coach. I'm not a purist mentor or consultant. I'm kind of a coach sultan, and I believe coach sulting is a good way of operating.
Mhm.
So I see it a little bit that way. I see when to say something, and at the same time, maybe when to pull back and know that that person really does need to come up with and see their blind spot right now. And so you got to kind of understand the two and create from there.
I love that, coach salting. So there's a new word for me, man. You got you got to patent that, Brian. That's an awesome word. I love that. Um, has has coaching continued to evolve because the workforce has evolved so much, especially the younger kids coming in right now? How, in your opinion, Brian, has coaching evolved? And I guess I'll ask a follow up to that is, why don't we see especially more new emerging leaders really grabbing a hold of coaching right from the beginning of their career? I tend to see folks evolve to that and not start with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the entire answer for that. Other than I know that there is, like anything else, there's a lot of coaches. It's a very desirable, I think, place to
Yeah.
be. The last report that I read, I don't know if this is the most current, was over 800,000 global coaches.
Wow.
Uh, and you know that's now the thing is that there's a flavor of coach for everything. I mean, there's mindset coaching, there's business coaching, there's meditation coaching. There's so many different coaches that it would take, like, it's kind of like Bubba Gump and Forrest Gump talking about coaching with shrimp, right? So there's that many, and I think that it's kind of like mortgage. I mean, there's a lot of mortgage people, but how do you decide which one is the right one for you when they all do the kind of the same thing, but not really?
Yeah.
And so that's I think part of the problem is that you really have to understand what is the thing that you're bringing that no other coach can bring. And then I think the other thing you asked, why people coming out of school aren't just starting with coaching, and I'm
Yeah.
just going to guess on this. I don't have any research or anything backed on this, but I do think that that part of being able to be coached is knowing that you have gone through a transformation of some level yourself. That's not to say that you have the knowledge, but I do think that going through some challenges in life and getting through some speed bumps and growing through those things, understanding what life kind of like throws at you and how to come back at it, that means a lot. And even if you don't share the answers of what those are, but just having the empathy of knowing what that is like is something that you just have to go through. And for me, I think that it's good to go through those things so that then you can be a better coach for others.
Oh, there's no question. You really nailed it. And I know you said you didn't have any research on that, but as you started to say that, I'm like, you know what, that is dead on. That's what I see. That's absolutely what I see. This has been amazing. I've got just a couple of more questions. One about this, and then I want people to know how they can pick up your books and contact and work with you. What is the human marketing funnel?
Yeah, here's the thing. When you walk over to or open up your marketing stack, or you look at your all your different pieces of software that you have, or any of the touch points that you have that makes up your marketing for your business, um, I'd encourage everybody to walk over to a whiteboard if you don't have this and actually draw out, just brainstorm it out, do it with a team, do it by yourself, whatever you need, but just draw out, like, if a customer were to come to us, how would they get to us? What then would they receive once they get to us? And then how would they actually convert to a customer, or how would they become a customer? And draw that out, like just scribble it out on a whiteboard or something. And then take a step back and say, what are the human touch points in all of that? Where are we making a difference that touches the customer in a unique way that gives them the so that they know that you are actually a human being that cares about the fact that they become a customer, and how you're going to treat them when they become a customer, and that sort of thing. So really look at the human touch points and say, how can I make that even more personalized? Ask yourself that question. How can I make that even more personalized to that person? If you can really answer that question, you've now, I really wish I never used the word funnel, because I can't stand funnels, but it's the best thing that we have, so that everybody understands it. Look at your funnel and actually say, okay, how can I hyper personalize that human touch point so that they understand how they're going to be treated when they become a customer? That's going to make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I love that. And that takes effort. That takes really thought. I love it. You said, get with the team to brainstorm and really, how can we just reach that customer in an even deeper way? I love that. Love that. Bryan, this has been amazing. Please keep doing the work that you're doing. It is important work for leaders out there for sure. And so speaking of that, how can folks pick up your books, and how can they connect with you and possibly work with you?
Yeah, everything you just said is all on my website, including all my social media, my books, my newsletter, um, past podcasts. All your podcasts will be on there. And so all of it is there if you want to join. And if you hit reply to any of my newsletters, I reply back, because what kind of H2H person would I be if I actually let a robot do that for me? So yeah, bryankramer.com, Bryan with a Y, Kramer with a K. And it's at Bryan Kramer across all social as well. And I'll hit reply, maybe not as quickly as I like these days, because I like my work life harmony, but I will reply.
That is awesome. That will be in the notes. And so if someone is driving and listening to this in the car, don't worry, you'll get it all in the notes. Just click right on, you'll see it right there. Bryan, thank you so much. I learned so much. You are so unique. You're such a unique leader. And I know I don't get a lot of views on video. It's mostly listen, but your authenticity in your eyes is amazing. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that, but you could just see how much you care about people, how much it's not just a business to you, that you genuinely want to see people succeed. You can see it right there all in your eyes. So maybe I'll get a few people say, okay, I got to watch the YouTube video as well. but that's not why I said that. I really mean that. And thank you for doing what you're doing.
Wow, that's a first. Thank you. Thanks for saying that. And
My pleasure.
you just yeah, that was really nice of you. Thank you.
Awesome.
And thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Some great questions and dialogue.
Yeah, no, it was. Thank you so much. Well, folks, we're going to leave it there. This is Kenny and Bryan. This has been the Leading from the Middle podcast. Talk to you real soon.